Secret of the Mimic had this excellent feeling of dread throughout the entire game, but there's another stranger feeling that many of us had while playing. Deja vu. Many of the locations of Murray's Costume Manor felt oddly familiar, almost reminiscent of the Security Breach Pizzaplex. And though both buildings were likely built in the same spot, why are some of the rooms themselves nearly identical? Well, when I tried to figure that out, I came across something that might piece together how the entire Mimic timeline makes sense. I'm not kidding. Slices, put on your aprons and let's bake ourselves a theory. Yes, I'm sick. I waited all week to not be sick. It is Thursday at 5 p.m. I can't record any later. This is genuinely the best I've sounded in a week. Sorry. Now, admittedly, some of you might be confused, which is a valid response. What could I possibly mean when I say Secret of the Mimic gives me deja vu of Security Breach? Well, like I said, it's the rooms, the architecture. More and more as you look throughout this environment, you find echoes of each other. In fact, in my first playthrough of Secret of the Mimic, I didn't even notice this until one of the endings of the game. On the way down to the underground pizzeria for 2 of the 3 endings, you have to take the Welcome Show elevator, and that's when it hit me. Huh, this looks a lot like the main stage elevator from Security Breach, doesn't it? And it's not just a circular open elevator. I mean, the gears, the button in the center of the stage, the fact that it's an elevator in the middle of a show, it's all there. And just that would be strange enough. But that's what got me thinking, is there anything else in this game that's strangely similar? And there is. The next thing that stood out to me is this springlock assembly claw. It looks frighteningly similar to the scooper we see at the end of Ruin. Now, when we first saw this scooper in Ruin, a lot of us were confused on why, if it's supposed to be a scooper, does it look so different than the one we see in Sister Location, only for it to be revealed that we were right to point out that this is different because this machine doesn't seem to be inspired by this. It's inspired by the springlock assembly claw from MCM. So what gives? I mean, we know that Fazbear is historically and provably cheap to a fault. Man, I feel awful after that room. What even? You've got to be kidding me. Well, at least I'm back to square one. Oh, hey, sponsor. Today's video is brought to you by Fume. Nice. Cravings aren't just about chemicals. It's about the habit, the hand-to-mouth motion, that oral fixation. Fume helps to replace that habit and give your hand and mouth something to do, distracting from that craving without vapor, nicotine, or batteries. And I want to be very clear, Fume is not a vape, e-cig, or anything like that. I don't support smoking or vaping and would not promote it on my channel. Fume is a weighted, twisty, fidget-friendly flavored air device, one that gives your hands something better to reach for when cravings show up. I fidget all the time at my desk when I'm trying to focus on getting work done, and having Fume helps me stay on task. Whenever I feel my mind start to wander, I reach for it and start fidgeting, and it helps my brain focus better, especially with their chewable Fume topper. And the flavors, like my favorite crisp mint, are so nice and lighter, like flavored water, which tracks since it's flavored air. If you're ready to break the habit, now's a great time to try Fume. Right now, when you grab a Journey Pack, you'll get a free Fume topper just for using my code RYTOAST. The Fume topper adds a soft, chewable, reusable mouthpiece, giving your mouth something safe to chew when cravings hit. Grab this offer while it's still available. So head to tryfume.com, that's TRYFUM.com, and use code RYTOAST to get your free Fume topper with your Journey Pack today. Thanks again to Fume for sponsoring today's video. Alright, well, I'm taking a door break before this cold goes away. The doors will be there when I wake up, surely. But am I seriously standing here about to make the accusation that Fazbear is straight up reusing rooms? After all, we know for a near certain fact that these buildings are on the same plot of land. I mean, we know Fazbear bought up the property, and I mean, compare the lots visually, not to mention the fact that both of them have a fake pizzeria hidden underneath them. So if this is the same area, did they really reuse the same rooms? Well, no. First of all, they're not identical. Yes, these elevators share a lot of similarities, but the size and location just does not make sense. Same with these hooks. Like, the ceiling attachment and build of them are the same, but like needle, not needle. That alone, right? But even more direct than the visual comparison, look at the endings we have. In the ending that most people assume is the most likely canon ending, the one where we visit Murray's house and then face off against the Mimic, burn it all down and escape, I just said it. We burn it all down and escape. It looks like the majority of MCM is on fire when we're making our grand escape in the Cradle.exe .exe ending. So even if they wanted to reuse these rooms, they'd be so fire damaged that it wouldn't be worth it. Trust me, my office job before doing YouTube was a desk job at an asset management company, and all I did most days was look at pictures of damaged houses and decide if it's worth it for the bank to try to rebuild it or just bulldoze it. And fire damage was the #1 thing to look out for. Even if visually it's not that bad, there's enough structural integrity that's gone that trying to build anything on top of it will eventually crumble. It is cheaper, and that's the key here thing with Fazbear, not just safety. It is cheaper to bulldoze a burned property and build from the ground up than try to restore it. And to further prove this, we have evidence that there was buildings in between MCM and the Pizzaplex. It wasn't just one-to-one. I've made this argument plenty of times, but when you look at the Midnight Motorist map, if this is the Afton household, and this is the Afton household near MCM, this parking lot had juniors in it. A lot of people, myself included, think that juniors opened up inside of a Fredbear's or Freddy's closed location, which would mean that one of those was here as well. But all this to say, MCM would have had to burn down to make room for a Fredbear's or Freddy's to open up. So okay, in summary, there's plenty of evidence to show that these are not the same exact rooms. So then the question now becomes, why are they so similar? Well, I think we'll start to figure that out when we go over the other similarities with Security Breach and other games in this franchise, because there is a lot more than you think. Why are you so moody? Oh, there are other rooms in the Security Breach Pizzaplex that are reminiscent of another location, but this time they're not real locations. I'm talking about the Help Wanted rooms of Security Breach. Now, I'm not treading new ground here. These were found out pretty quickly after the game came out. Rooms that resemble the Plush Baby level, the Vent Repair level, the Dreadbear lobby, the Build a Mango minigame, and not for nothing, it's not from Help Wanted. I feel like Mike's room should go in here too. These rooms are just scattered in random side areas throughout the Pizzaplex. It's incredibly strange. Like, what the hell are these? Why are there bare bones recreations of Help Wanted minigames as rooms in the Security Breach Pizzaplex? And they're not recreations of the minigames, to be clear. These are just completely separate rooms. That vent repair room is likely a laundry room, but it looks like vent repair from Help Wanted. Why? Well, the only clue to this lies in one more thing that is reminiscent of something else in Security Breach, the Faz Wrench. We first see them in Ruin, but from Ruin and Help Wanted 2, it seems like most employees at the Pizzaplex utilized a Faz Wrench. This piece of technology that looks frighteningly similar to the Data Diver from Secret of the Mimic. The Data Diver is used all throughout Murray's Costume Manor by the employees. Almost like if you asked the Mimic what employees use, they would say data divers. And a piece of technology, one that in all 3 endings of Secret of the Mimic holds the schematics for the Mimic. Hey, you don't think that... So, am I saying the Mimic built the Pizzaplex? No, but I do think it influenced its design. Well, how would we know this? I feel like if we can assign involvement, ability, and opportunity, then I think it's a pretty valid accusation to say that the Mimic influenced the design of the Pizzaplex. And we already have 2 of the 3. There is already evidence of the Mimic's involvement with the fact that there's weird replication going on. The entire point of the Mimic is to see things and replicate them. And if we're seeing things in Security Breach's Pizzaplex being replicated, that's already fishy, let alone the fact that everything that's being replicated is things that would have been nearby the Mimic. Either it's stuff from Help Wanted, which the Mimic's program was in, or it's stuff from Murray's Costume Manor, which is where the Mimic was made. So the idea that things from the Mimic's life are being put into the Pizzaplex is clear evidence of its involvement. And as far as ability, like I mentioned, that's the entire purpose of the Mimic. The entire ability the Mimic has, I'm gonna blow your mind, is to mimic stuff. So we already have involvement and ability. The question now remains, and this is where the crux of this comes in, is there an opportunity? It's one thing to say that the Mimic would replicate things it knew in its past life if it was able to influence the design of the Pizzaplex. That's not a hard claim to make. The difficult part of this theory is when would it have had the opportunity to do so. And there's actually a decent explanation for this in the games and the books, and it's the same explanation. The Tales in the Pizzaplex short stories, while in their own separate continuity, do inform us a lot about the world of Five Nights at Freddy's. What is and isn't possible, what exists in this world, and one aspect of this world that's brought up a few times actually, but is really focused in the storyteller, is that the entire reason the security breach Mega Pizzaplex exists in the first place is some dumb, rich CEO had the bright idea that he could find a brand that was incredibly cheap, pump a bunch of money into it, make it a major brand, and sell it for a profit. And he picked the Fazbear brand. It was ran quick and as much as possible, to the point that in the story, the storyteller, this CEO is willing to fire the majority of the creative team and replace it with an AI storyteller that he found in the Fazbear collection of stuff that he now owns. So, in other words, in the books, the current Fazbear CEO is a dumb, rich guy trying to make a quick buck who is willing to use AI found in Fazbear technology to replace human workers. Sound familiar? It should, because the exact same thing happens in the games, and we have reliable proof of it in Help Wanted. The tapes we hear throughout the entirety of Help Wanted is Tape Girl telling us that because the game was taking a long time to develop, Fazbear sent over proprietary old technology to scan into the game without any explanation, but they were told it would help them pad the animatronics. And it did, but it also formed Glitch Trap, because whatever this technology was, had the Mimic's AI on it. So what old technology could they have possibly scanned in that had the Mimic's AI on it? Well, I think it's something that in every single ending of Secret of the Mimic has the Mimic schematics on it, the data diver. What exactly am I implying here? You are the Fazbear CEO, some snobby rich kid looking to get richer, and you just bought the Fazbear brand, one that was dirt cheap, and you know that if you fudge a couple numbers and muddy some waters, people will forget about that rancid past and come lining up for Freddy and the gang once again. And so far, you've been right. You made an entire VR game parodying the real-life crimes of this company, and everyone ate it up. You even got to use some of the old Fazbear technology, some weird Mimic AI thing, to speed up the coding process. You're a genius, dude. If it's not clear, I'm feeding into the ego of this guy. He is very stupid. So now it's time for your big swing. Public image is better than it's ever been. Let's make the Mega Pizzaplex. One issue, you don't know how to make a Mega Pizzaplex. What would a restaurant like that look like? What would it cost to make? And that's when it hits you. Why bother paying some architect to make a structurally sound building? We're trying to make money. And to make money, you gotta save money. And you know how you can save money? The same way you did with the VR game. Something you've already done in the past that we have clear and direct evidence of. Just do it again. Pull up that Mimic AI and be like, hey, make me a Pizzaplex. And it generates you some blueprints. All you gotta do is pay some schmucks to build it. This theory is positing that the Mimic AI was used to create the schematics for the Pizzaplex. Think about it. It makes perfect sense. First of all, we all know Scott is pretty anti-Gen AI, as most good people should be. Frankly, if you use generative AI, I think less of you as a person, and I stand on that. But Scott has a similar opinion, and this would mean that it fully explains why the Pizzaplex is such a shitty building. When you enter the front doors, the first thing you see is a closed down elevator that broke. When you go into the lower parking garages, they're caved in. This building is in constant states of falling apart and needing repair, and it's because the schematics were made by an AI, and that's why there's so many extra side rooms that don't add anything. It's the artifacting of the Mimic's AI. It's like, well, we need a room here, I'll pull from my memory data bank, and it creates something, aka steals something it's seen, and puts it into the Pizzaplex. It's exactly why there is an official Pizzaplex door whose entire purpose is to go into a staircase that leads to a cave that heads towards the old pizzeria. Hell, this could be what Steel Wool was referring to in the very first Dawko interview. A few days before Security Breach came out, two of the leads at Steel Wool took up an interview with Dawko to talk about the upcoming FNAF game. And one of the last questions was, is there anything you can hint to us about Security Breach, even if it's one word? And they said schematics. Maybe this is what Ray McCaffrey was talking about. Maybe these are the schematics. The idea, the hint, was that this entire game only takes place because the secret main villain of this entire arc, who at this point we didn't really know existed, built the building we're inside of. The very foundation of the Pizzaplex bleeds the Mimic, and it's something we wouldn't even get to know until several years later. So that's my thinking. Fazbear retained the data diver, and that's where the copy of the Mimic schematics are on, and they use that in the creation of the Pizzaplex to not have to hire a contractor to make the actual schematics, which then explains so much about the weirdness of the Mega Pizzaplex building and why it doesn't make any sense and it's constantly falling apart. And frankly, I really believe this theory, and I kind of forgot I was holding this too. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Am I losing my mind or am I onto something here? Also, again, apologies for sick voice. Hopefully it wasn't too jarring to listen to. In the meantime, if you want to hear more about where this rich CEO willing to do anything that it takes comes in effect, there's actually a whole theory called Remnantplex about how the entire building might be powered by the souls of the dead. It sounds crazy, but I think it might be true. You should go watch that right here. If you want your fan art featured on the channel, make sure to share with #ToastArt. A huge thank you to the best channel members, the Dough Risers, and until next time, as always, stay toasty, slices.